You are watching Profonde TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
Nah, who are you? What's your passion in life? Whatever it is, don't edit. Just tell me, what's your passion?
Oh my gosh. I realize I love to feel. I love to be able to have other people feel what makes them feel good about themselves. And I find that we're all mirrors and reflections of one another. And so I am starting to embrace that I'm a healer in different mediums, whether it's clothes, whether it's yoga, whether it's designing products. I'm essentially a healer. I have embraced that, but I'm not your typical healer. I'm not going to heal someone directly one-on-one, but through other mediums. I loved dressing up when I was a kid. Used to play dress up. It was really silly, but it's what really made me feel alive. I remember when I was 5 having music and these huge scarves that I was gifted with, and I would play with them. So design through me was through play. That's all I knew it was. And if I'm going to have to be honest with you, as an adult, I still play. I still have my imagination, and I realize it is the most important thing. And I live the way that I live right now as an independent designer, a contractor, freelancer, whatever label you want to put me as, in order to protect this freedom, in order for me to play, in order for me to heal, in order for me to give back to society in a way that I only know how. I realize I don't fit in the 9 to 5. I don't fit in the structure of what the current system. I feel very unnatural. I am related more to a plant, how I respond to the sun and the moon and the cycles of the earth. And yet we're very structured in this 9 to 5, 5 days a week. It's not natural. And when you are in your own element, that's where inspiration comes in. And that's different for everyone. And so people think I need to sit down and think. No, your thinking is happening when you're not thinking, when you're not doing. And so being able to set that condition around you, to set a schedule that is most natural for you, that's when you're creative.
That is fantastic. Nah, I'm inspired by this because, I'm thinking that designers have to be stuck in zeros and ones right now. They have to be stuck at their computers. You want to solve that design problem, I would gather. You want to find a way to make humans and machines get along better. Am I correct?
I think I'm responding to the pain points and the friction that's happening in the world right now. I think design is a continual dialogue. It's a dialogue that we have with ourselves, with our coworkers, with the world, what's working right, what's not working right, and what problem we're trying to solve.
So, but let's look at your healing. You said you were not the typical healer. So how are you blending your ability as the skilled technical person, designer, and healing? Can you give me some thoughts about how these two blend together or not? Maybe you don't want to give away your secrets. I don't know.
I find that there are different ways in terms of how we can heal through the work that we do. One, where are we in terms of how we want to reflect the world is through our own vision, our own perception. So we have an accountability of taking care of ourselves as a designer. That's one. And then second, how are we sharing and having that conversation with the people that we collaborate with? So for example, my vision forward to work in iterating a Vogue, I want to put it out in the world as soon as possible, but I want to work with the right team members. I want to work with an electrical engineer that is also into the mindfulness space, because he's going to bring something, not just, the circuitry and knowing what boards to use, but really his insight and his ability in this space in his engineering work. And I also want to bring people who are not in technical and engineering work. I want to bring people who are laymen, who practice daily meditation. And people are at different level of meditation and mindfulness practice. So I'm curious to learn, how can we help them to get into deepening their practice? And I think at first I was shy that technology is not appropriate in this space, but maybe technology is enabling and helping people to meet them where they're at, to go deeper.
Are there things in our world, and I'm not talking about the standard problems like dirty water and lack of food, which are also big problems, but are there things in our everyday life that you feel limit the human experience? Like I think of the millions of people in public transportation jammed together in gas, buses and cars. And are there things that bother you about our environment that you would like to address?
To have a sensibility that we are connected. And I feel like we're isolating ourselves in purpose, in a way. And I find that the most magical moments are the ones that I'm able to connect with someone that I don't know by happenstance and engaging in a conversation that they feel recognized, and I recognize them, and I recognize myself through them. And it's this magical moment. I've had these where I connect with someone based on what, a book that they're reading. And I know that I have that on my bookshelf. And we shared a moment of appreciation for a topic, and we connected. And I may never see them again, but that is a moment that we're lacking in society, that this greater communal, without having to be so involved in a particular group membership, a labeled kind of group. I don't know if that, I think that's the best way, is that how are we connecting with others without having to be invited to a formal labeled group? And how do we connect with others? Yeah. And create that magical moment.
So if I understand you have some ideas for ending the isolation that so many people are experiencing. And you don't have an answer yet, but you're looking.
I don't have an answer,
Yeah,
but I find that that's some of the delights that we're missing and we're not recognizing enough. So it's basically, people may be looking for things that it is already within themselves that we yet have not discovered. And I find that ancient wisdom and ancient technology and teaching has that ability to illuminate that part of ourselves, and that how can we share that with others. So I guess it's also bringing the forgotten teachings and infuse that with modern ways and technology. And how does that, I don't know, how does that translate into now?
Okay, well, I want to just kind of be the devil's advocate for the moment, and that is, some ancient teachings were based on a group of elite people having the information, and the rest of the information was designed to make the masses go along with the elite concepts. Like when you're reading the Tao Te Ching, it really wasn't written for the ordinary common individual. It was written for those individuals who could read. So I'm very nervous about ancient teachings because they were not promoting the power of the individual. I mean, did you have to push through anything internally to say, my ideas matter?
Right.
This is a big deal for a designer. You've got to say in the world, hey, what I think has value.
I had a conversation with an elder, and we had this You know, why our certain teaching is only for the few and not for the masses? And I feel there's a message that comes along the line, I don't know if I remember correctly, but that it's only those who are ready to listen, to hear, to respond accordingly. And so it requires effort for those who actually want to know the teaching, is that they have to overcome their own limitations, desires, ego, to reach those deeper gems of teachings. I find that there are layers in order to achieve that higher knowledge. And a lot of that is, I think, regardless of what teaching and what culture, it's about overcoming our own self to retrieve that message. And this is an exercise I find most interesting, is that it goes now that we're bridging it a little bit to the moral side, is because if we can do, why not? If we can, can we discipline ourselves to not open the Pandora box when I talk about technology? Or if I'm exercising my diet, it's so much, there's a huge difference shopping when you're full versus when you're hungry. So.
Okay, now you've got some pretty powerful metaphors there. What do you mean by not opening Pandora's box with technology?
I think we've already have, in terms of when we talk about with genetics, you know, are we playing God? You know, choosing the gender of a child, or removing certain genes so that, I don't know, that we can cure certain disease before it can happen. How does that affect population? Considering we're trying to affect population through agriculture and food modification. Even weapons, the things that, you know, that we create in order to achieve power, how does that going to come and play out in the aftermath? Also, these algorithms, we're basically facilitating and controlling the way people live and their behaviors. So those are interesting things, and we don't have answers.
And you didn't answer one of the questions I asked you, and I'm going to try it again.
Okay, try me again.
I'll try it in a different way. Did you have any cultural things that said you as a woman could not, or you as an Asian woman could not come forward with your own individual stand on things? Did you have to overcome anything like that? Or did you always feel empowered to be innovative and step out from the crowd?
This interesting question. Inside, I feel that my philosophy is that we both have male and female energy. Subconsciously and culturally, yes. It's something that I had to really, really push myself through. And it's something that the condition and how we brought up culturally, my family had certain expectations of me. I had to say that I can say that they were fully supportive of me going into fashion design growing up. They wanted me to have a much more secure, more business oriented. And growing up from Delaware, it's really not a fashion capital, but it's something within me that pulled me, and I think it was will. It was just, I don't know, it's stubbornness, but that's all I saw and that's all I went for, and here I am. So within me, it was not a struggle. I'm going to be anything else. That was it. I think the transition of me from being a fashion designer into like what's next is probably a bigger struggle, and finding that identity. Who am I? And I'm not my career. And I don't want to be labeled as one career, as a defining thing that I have to do. So what I want doesn't exist, so I have to create it. And that's the biggest thing, because people don't recognize you unless there is a label. So how do you come out and saying that you have so much to offer, and yet the world really wants to stereotype you and put you in a box. That's the biggest struggle that I have right now.
Well, yeah, and you have you have 3 or 4 interesting boxes that
people are like, well, who are you? What are you? Put yourself in one. And I'm like, but they're all interconnected.
Exactly.
So this learning, helps infuse for me to innovate here, because innovation is really about thinking outside the box. It is about disruption. It's about hybridity. It's about mixing the old and the new, different discipline, different industry, in order to solve complex problem in this changing world. The problem now is not the thing that you're going to solve. The innovation, the problem is, how agile are you? How adaptable are you for you to respond? And that's where wisdom comes in. This is where knowing what emerging technology to layer in order to respond to these complex problems that we don't know. And so that's where I'm at right now.
That is fantastic. So we're going to show some of your innovations. Like, you've mentioned the Evoke. We're going to show that, discuss that. You don't have to go there right now. You're going to talk about your healing work a little bit more. So you say you want to integrate the healing with the design, but what could you heal? I mean, I know you can't necessarily give me a specific, but I don't know. I guess I want to know where you want to heal. Do you want to make your offices more friendly for people? Do you want to make chairs more comfortable for people? Or I don't know. You say you want people to connect individually with each other, maybe through a book or something. I got that part. What else would you like to see?
Healing may be a limiting word. Maybe a closer word would be bringing empathy into the work that we do. And that is a more widely accepted word that is actually being adopted in the field of human-centered design and user experience design, is how do we empathize with the consumer, the patients, the people who are actually going to interact with that end product or service. And it's about putting ourselves in other people's shoes and feeling what they're feeling as they're engaging with it. So I think and it comes through the process, and it comes through patience and understanding. It was interesting because right after I graduated, and I don't know if this is going to take off tangent, but one of the things that I learned was through this retreat with Buddhist monks, and it was 1 week, and it was an invitation for people who are working technology with engineers, designers, laymen, and all the monks from around the world from Plum Village. And we ended up spending 3.5 out of the 6 days understanding patience through sharing, vulnerability through these exercise, walking meditation, eating meditation, and Dharma talks. And it wasn't until that third night that we engaged to how we interact with technology. And it was through these exercises that kind of set the tone of how we're going to approach. So I think that's really important, is like, what kind of feeling tone are we setting before we engage into designing, problem solving? Because if you don't set that condition, you're not being intentful enough in what is it that you're creating and trying to solve.
That is so masterful, Na. That is a very powerful question. And I think that you're suggesting a paradigm shift in the design field. You're not just designing the designs, you're talking about shifting an awareness before you begin the design. And that in itself will build in the empathy that you're talking about. If you're asking yourself how this will play and what this will do. Because a lot of design right now is built to increase isolation, as you say. Because a lot of people are turned off by society. I don't want to be out there with those crazy people. So maybe those designers have set us up to be separate. You see, their motivation might be that.
In terms of isolation, I find that there needs to be, I really embrace this idea of duality, and isolation is such the extreme word, and then there's like social network and community. And I think it's about harmony and about balance and about knowing when to retreat and when to enclose and have this thoughtful moment of self-contemplation. And then when do we open up again? And as designers, I think it's also facilitating that process. And whether it's one person facilitating that process or is it individually we're responsible is very important. So it's not always about like being with people, and it's not always the extreme of being isolated. As an introvert, I think best when I have actually isolation and I have total peace and quiet. But then also it's about coming together and sharing your thoughts. So it's this like coming in and coming outward. And it's also about embracing that duality and harmony and knowing how much of that, so that it nurtures you, it nurtures the group so that you can share most authentically without being judged, that everybody's voice is heard, and that it's not about group mindset that, oh, we work well together because we all agree. Actually, your innovation is probably that one person who disagree, but understanding and listening to why that is, and to be constructive in diversity when things you don't agree on is maybe that seed of innovation.
You have a wonderful product that looks like a stone. Can we talk about that?
Yes, so that is Evoke. It's a series of products about helping us to recalibrate. We work so much at our desk. Sometimes we forget even to get up to go take a break. So there is a setting there that allows the person to be reminded to take a break after 50 minutes. And that's from a research as well, that we should take a break or walk every 55 minutes. And another feature that I have within the stone, it's an embedded stone. It has a gyroscope, an accelerometer, haptics, LED lights, and an Arduino board that operates it. And the second feature, it has promotes a person to activate for meditation walk. So the idea is that we want to de-stress, and sometimes we want to take a vacation or retreat. But what if we can exercise micro-behavioral habits in our daily lives? And if we can practice mindfulness from one location of the house to another, or running an errand, and that we are centered, we can feel our feet and the ground, our breathing, sensing the steps intentionally, and make that as part of our daily life. And how is that going to help us be more patient and understanding through these exercises? So that's the second feature. And the third feature is entrainment breathing. So through my yoga practice and also reading about the nervous system and understanding the fight or flight in the parasympathetic and the sympathetic system, synchronization of the breath is very important, how that affects the heart rate variability. So embedded in the third feature is a haptic sound sense. So if you feel that you're stressed and you really need to help with calming down, you activate the third feature. And the third feature, you sense and feel this beat. It's like a haptic sensor. And you breathe, synchronizing your breath. And when you breathe slower, you actually calm down. And so this very simple exercise that you can pick up the stone that's on your table and just really sense and feel and de-stress.
So now tell me, as I listen to you talking about this very beautiful stone that has all of these features, I wonder, will you take the same concept to other things like furniture or clothing or You know, will we be sitting in a chair that tells us to get up one day?
I would love to. The idea that this is a starting point. And so I'm looking forward to collaborate with other engineers, other industrial designers, people from other disciplines that can infuse, you know, the desirability of not just function, but the emoting and feeling into the products that we want to use tomorrow.
Okay, so you have, we're not going to give away all your secrets. I bet you have some wonderful ideas inside about design, but you also are engaged in something called Inner Compass.
It's Inner Compass is about having, I think people have certain visions and certain desire, but they're afraid to put it out into the world. And the community is to support that process because you're not in it alone. And I find that when you're a creator, designer, or you want something to put out, you feel sometimes critique, judge, and it could be a very vulnerable process. And I find that I've been helping a lot of startups, founders, because when you're in this as a solopreneur or an entrepreneur, you're creating a product or a service, and it could be a daunting task. You're excited about it, you want to put it in, and once you're in the process, sometimes you go peaks and you go through valleys. And having a support group and sharing that, having other people to talk out loud, really help, you know, put the person move forward in their path to really manifest what is the inside that they want to bring out.
Speaking of the problems that people have when they start up, what are the hardest things that designers have to face when they're in their process? Do you have design blocks? Do you, like, there's writer's block? Is there design block? What are the obstacles in your path?
Sometimes we can be attached to our ideas. I think even when I can look back when I'm in my younger days, sometimes we have an idea and we're so locked into it. Unless it's art, it's something that you want to express and put out. But design, there is a compromise. There are other people involved. And I think being able to articulate your vision is very important, and also to share what you know and you see so other partners in the process understand, and that it's our responsibility to understand what other people's needs are in order to function, and how we work together to create an end product.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. I look forward to seeing the response to your ideas, and I am blown away by your insight into shifting design by examining the motivation and creating empathy. I really thank you for your time today, Na. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.